You know, nobody talks about the moment when you finally start seeing people for who they really are. It creeps up on you slowly. Maybe it starts with a friend who always seems to have drama following them everywhere they go, or a coworker who's incredibly charming to your face, but you keep hearing about the things they say behind your back. Small things at first, red flags you explain away because you want to believe the best in people. But then the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. The mask starts slipping. The performances become obvious. The manipulation tactics become clear as day. And once you see it, truly see it, there's no going back to that comfortable ignorance, and suddenly you realize why you'd rather be alone. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not some dramatic revelation while watching a sunset. It's more like slowly adjusting your eyes after walking out of a dark movie theater. At first, everything seems too bright, too harsh, but then the clarity hits you and you can never go back to that comfortable darkness. They sell you this fairy tale, don't they? Get to know people better, they say. Build deeper connections. What a load of garbage. Because here's what actually happens when you start paying attention. Truly paying attention to the people around you. You don't get closer, you get the hell away from them. And the worst part, society acts like there's something wrong with you for wanting space, like you're the broken one, like you're antisocial. But here's the truth they don't want you to know. The more you understand people, the more you realize why solitude isn't loneliness. It's freedom. Let me paint you a picture. You meet someone new. The first few conversations are golden. They're charming, funny, and they seem genuine. You think, finally someone real? Maybe it's at work, maybe through mutual friends, maybe on a dating app. It doesn't matter. The pattern is always the same, but then something happens. You start noticing the cracks, the way they change their entire personality depending on who's in the room. Watch them with their boss versus their subordinates, with their parents versus their friends, with someone they're trying to impress versus someone they think they're better than. It's like watching a masterclass in shape-shifting, and it's disturbing how seamless the transitions are, how they trash talk their best friend the moment that friend leaves. Not just casual complaints, we all vent sometimes, but the vicious, calculated character assassination that happens the second that person is out of earshot. They'll spend 20 minutes dissecting everything wrong with someone they just hug goodbye. The way they fish for compliments by putting themselves down, then get irritated when you don't bite. "I'm so ugly today," they'll say, waiting for you to disagree. And when you don't play along with their validation-seeking theater, when you respond with silence or change the subject, watch how quickly that insecurity turns to resentment. The subtle power plays disguised as helpfulness. "You should really try this" becomes a way to establish superiority. "Let me help you with that" becomes a way to create debt. Every gesture has a hidden agenda. Every kindness has strings attached. Carl Jung wasn't messing around when he talked about the persona, that mask everyone wears to survive society. But here's what Jung didn't prepare you for. Once you see the mask, you can't unsee it. And once you realize everyone is wearing one, game over. You start watching people perform their little social theater, and it's exhausting. They're all playing characters they think will get them what they want: attention, validation, control, safety. The popular girl who's actually desperately insecure. The tough guy who's terrified of being seen as weak. The helpful person who's buying loyalty. The victim who's actually controlling everyone around them. And the scariest part? Most of them don't even know they're doing it. They've been performing for so long, they've forgotten who they are underneath the costume. But you do. And that knowledge, it's like swallowing poison. Remember when small talk felt normal? When "how's the weather" actually felt like a real conversation? When someone asked about your weekend and you thought they genuinely cared? Yeah, those days are gone. Now when someone asks how you're doing, you can hear the script running in their head. You can see them waiting for their turn to talk, not listening to your response. They don't want the real answer. They want the performance. I'm good, thanks. How about you? And everyone can move on with their day, pretending they connected. You start timing these interactions. Elevator small talk, exactly 30 seconds of weather commentary, grocery store checkout, precisely the amount of pleasant chatter it takes to scan your items. Office kitchen encounters. Just enough. How was your weekend? To fill the coffee-making silence. It's all scripted, all performance, all hollow. But what happens when you've developed emotional pattern recognition? When you can spot the insecurity behind their bragging? When you recognize that their story about their amazing vacation is really about proving they're living their best life? When you hear the fear behind their aggression, the emptiness behind their constant need for validation? You start hearing the hollow echo in every interaction. Your coworker complains about the same problem for the 100th time, not because they want solutions, but because they want an audience. You've offered advice. You've listened sympathetically. You've tried to help them brainstorm, but they don't want solutions. They want an audience for their drama. Your friend only calls when they need something, but frames it like they're checking in. The call starts with, "How are you?" But within 3 minutes, they're asking for a favor, emotional support for their latest crisis, or validation for their recent decisions. Your family member uses guilt as their primary communication tool, then acts shocked when you don't play along. "I guess I'm just not important to you anymore," they'll say when you don't respond to their text immediately. "I suppose you're too busy for your old mom now." And suddenly you're sitting there thinking, is this all there is? Is this what connection looks like? The answer is more disturbing than you want to admit. Here's where it gets dark, really dark. The more you understand people's motives, the less you can trust anyone. Not because they're all evil, though some definitely are, but because you start seeing the patterns, the tells, the moments when their mask slips, and you glimpse what's really driving them. It starts small. You notice your friend always has an excuse when you need them, but expects immediate availability when they need you. You see how they keep score of favors, remembering every time they helped you, but conveniently forgetting when you helped them. You realize that friend who always has your back is actually keeping score. Every favor comes with an invisible price tag. They'll cash in later. "Remember when I helped you move?" becomes leverage in future disagreements. "After everything I've done for you," becomes emotional blackmail when you set a boundary. That romantic partner who seems so devoted, they love the idea of you, not the real you. They fell in love with the version of yourself you performed during the honeymoon phase. The moment you stop playing the role they've assigned you in their personal drama, when you have a bad day, express a different opinion, or prioritize something else, watch how fast that unconditional love evaporates. Your family member who claims they just want what's best for you, what they really want is for you to make choices that make them feel secure, that validate their own life decisions, that don't challenge their worldview. Your happiness is secondary to their comfort. The betrayals become predictable because the patterns are always the same. People protect their own interests first, always. They'll throw you under the bus to save face. They'll abandon you when supporting you becomes inconvenient. They'll use your vulnerabilities against you the moment you don't serve their needs. And here's the kicker. Betrayals stop being shocking. They become predictable. You see them coming from miles away. The friend who's going to throw you under the bus to save face when their lie gets exposed. The partner who's already checking out emotionally but hasn't told you yet because they need time to secure their exit strategy. The family member who's going to use your vulnerabilities against you the moment you don't fall in line with their expectations. Trust doesn't die from the betrayal itself. It dies from the knowledge that it was always inevitable. Want to know what's really messed up about society? Everyone's performing all the time, and they get angry when you stop playing along. You stop laughing at jokes that aren't funny. You stop pretending to be interested in conversations that bore you to tears. You stop nodding along when people say things you disagree with. You stop validating their need for constant attention and approval, and suddenly you're the problem. You've changed, they say. You're not fun anymore. You're too serious. You're being negative. You used to be so easygoing. What happened to you? And you know what? They're right. Maybe you have changed because you've seen through the social matrix a reality that you can't unsee anymore. So you've just stopped pretending. You've stopped feeding the performance machine that keeps everyone comfortable in their delusions. You've stopped being their supporting actor in the play of their life. They want you to laugh at their recycled jokes even when they weren't funny the first time. They want you to act impressed by their humble brags even when you can see right through them. They want you to participate in their gossip sessions even when you find them cruel and pointless. When you refuse to play these social games, when you respond authentically instead of automatically, they don't know how to handle it. Your authenticity becomes a mirror that reflects their performance, and they don't like what they see. Kierkegaard nailed it when he said, "The crowd is untruth." The more you see how desperately people cling to the crowd's approval, how they shapeshift to fit in, how they sacrifice their authentic selves for social acceptance, the more you realize you can't be a part of that anymore, not without losing yourself. Here's where the story takes a turn. Because there comes a moment, and you'll know it when it happens, where isolation stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like freedom. It might happen on a Friday night when everyone else is out performing their social rituals. You see the Instagram stories from the bars, the carefully curated group photos, the forced smiles, and the performed fun. Your phone buzzes with invitations you no longer feel compelled to accept. You're sitting alone in your space. Maybe it's your apartment. Maybe it's a coffee shop. Maybe it's just your car parked somewhere quiet. Everyone else is out performing their social rituals, posting their carefully curated happiness on social media, playing their roles in other people's dramas, and you're finally, blissfully, authentically alone. No one's projecting their insecurities onto you. No one's trying to manipulate your emotions to get what they want. No one's performing for your attention or demanding you perform for theirs. No one's expecting you to fix their problems, validate their choices, or participate in their drama. For the first time in forever, you can just be. The silence isn't empty, it's full of possibility, full of peace, full of your own thoughts that aren't being influenced, interrupted, or invalidated by others. You realize solitude isn't the consolation prize for people who can't figure out relationships. It's the jackpot for people who figured out that most relationships aren't worth the energy they drain. Let's talk about something nobody wants to acknowledge. Emotional energy is finite, limited, and precious. You wake up each day with a certain amount of emotional bandwidth, and every interaction either deposits or withdraws from that account. And most people are energy vampires. They come to you when they're struggling, dump their problems in your lap, soak up your attention and advice, then disappear until they need their next emotional fix. They don't want solutions. They want an audience. They don't want to grow. They want someone to enable their victimhood. They trauma bond with you over shared complaints about work, relationships, and family. But the moment you start healing, growing, and moving past those complaints, they get uncomfortable. Your growth threatens their identity as a victim. Your solutions challenge their need to stay stuck. They want you available for their drama, but absent during their success. When good things happen to them, they're too busy to call, but when a crisis strikes, your phone rings at midnight. They want your support without reciprocation. You listen to their relationship problems for hours, but when you need to talk about yours, they're suddenly busy, distracted, or full of judgmental advice. They want your authenticity while offering you performance. They expect you to be real with them, to listen, understand, and empathize while they feed you carefully edited versions of their truth. Once you see this pattern, truly see it, you start guarding your energy like the treasure it is. You stop being everyone's unpaid therapist. You stop lighting yourself on fire to keep others warm. You stop giving emotional CPR to people who are perfectly capable of solving their own problems but prefer to stay victims because it gets them attention. And when you do, when you start protecting your energy, they call you selfish. Imagine that. Taking care of yourself is suddenly selfish. Refusing to enable their dysfunction is suddenly cruel. Setting boundaries is suddenly mean. There's a moment when you develop advanced pattern recognition, when you can predict people's behavior with disturbing accuracy. And it's both a superpower and a curse. You know which friend will bail on plans at the last minute, not because of a real emergency, but because something better came along or they simply don't want to deal with the social effort anymore. You know which coworker will take credit for your work. You can see them positioning themselves during meetings, setting up the narrative that makes your contributions seem like their ideas. You know which family member will turn a celebration into a guilt trip about why you don't visit enough. Every birthday, every holiday, every achievement becomes an opportunity for them to make it about their feelings. You know which romantic interest is love bombing you to cover their red flags, the excessive attention, the premature declarations of deep connection, the way they're trying to fast-track intimacy to bypass your natural caution. You know which person is being nice because they want something, the sudden interest in your life, the unexpected compliments, the convenient availability, all building up to the moment they make their ask. You know which friend is competing with you while pretending to support you, the backhanded compliments, the subtle sabotage, the way they celebrate your failures a little too enthusiastically. And here's what's really twisted. When you try to set boundaries based on these patterns, when you protect yourself from predictable behavior, they act like you're the unreasonable one. Give them a chance and they say, "Don't be so mean. You're being paranoid. Not everyone is out to get you, but you're not paranoid. You're awake. And being awake in a world full of sleepwalkers is exhausting. You want to know what's really lonely? It's not being alone. It's being surrounded by people who can't handle your authenticity. You try to have real conversations about fears, dreams, the meaning of life, and what actually matters. You want to talk about the things that keep you up at night, the questions that fascinate you, the struggles that are shaping you, and they steer it back to safe territory. Celebrity gossip, work complaints, the weather, sports scores, TV shows, anything that doesn't require them to think or feel too deeply. You share something genuine about your struggle. Maybe you're dealing with anxiety or questioning your career path or struggling with a relationship. And they either try to fix you with surface-level advice, compete with your pain by one-upping your story, or change the subject because your reality makes them uncomfortable. You stop pretending everything is fine when it's not, and suddenly you're too much. You stop playing along with their illusions, and suddenly you're difficult. You express an opinion that challenges their worldview, and suddenly you're negative. You realize most people don't want real connection. They want comfortable familiarity. They want relationships that confirm their existing beliefs and make them feel good about themselves without requiring any growth or self-examination. Real intimacy, the kind where you can be fully yourself without performance, is rarer than unicorns. And don't get me started on social media. You scroll through feeds full of highlight reels and carefully crafted personas, and you know the truth behind the performance. You've had coffee with these people. You know what their real lives look like behind the filters and captions. You see the desperate need for validation disguised as confidence, the way people fish for comments and reactions, measuring their worth by likes and shares, the insecurity masked as success stories, the loneliness hidden behind constant social activity and group photos. Everyone's a brand now. Everyone's selling a version of themselves that barely resembles reality. The friend who posts about their amazing relationship while texting you about how miserable they are. The coworker who shares motivational quotes about authenticity while being the most fake person you know. You watch people you know personally posting about their incredible life and blessed existence. And you remember the conversation where they admitted they're barely holding it together. You see them posting inspirational content about mental health while refusing to address their own toxic behaviors. The disconnect is staggering. And the worst part, they believe their own performance. They get so caught up in maintaining the image that they lose touch with who they actually are underneath it all. The persona becomes more real to them than their authentic self. Once you understand manipulation tactics, you see them everywhere. And I mean everywhere. The guilt trips disguised as concern. I just worry about you when you don't call me back immediately. The gaslighting disguised as caring. You're being too sensitive. I was just trying to help. The emotional blackmail disguised as love. If you really cared about me, you would. The triangulation disguised as sharing. I was talking to our mutual friend, and they agree that you've been acting differently lately. The love bombing followed by calculated withdrawal. The way they use your empathy against you by playing victim when you set boundaries. The way they weaponize your kindness by taking advantage of your desire to help. You realize your supportive family member is actually controlling, using emotional manipulation to keep you dependent and compliant. Your caring friend is actually possessive, getting angry when you have other relationships or interests that don't include them. Your passionate romantic partner is actually obsessive, monitoring your behavior and punishing you with the silent treatment when you don't meet their expectations. You see how people use tears to avoid accountability, how they use anger to shut down conversations they don't want to have, how they use helplessness to get others to carry their responsibilities, how they use guilt to control your behavior. And once you see it, you can't participate anymore. Not without feeling like you're betraying yourself. Here's what really gets me. People will sacrifice their entire authentic selves to fit in, then wonder why they feel empty. They'll change their opinions based on who they're talking to, becoming liberal with their liberal friends and conservative with their conservative family members. They'll hide their real interests if they seem too weird, too niche, too different from what's socially acceptable. They'll agree with things they don't believe to avoid conflict, nodding along with conversations that make them uncomfortable rather than risk being seen as difficult. They'll laugh at jokes they find offensive to be accepted by the group, betraying their own values for social approval. And then they'll complain about feeling disconnected and unfulfilled, like something is missing from their lives. You want to shake them and say, of course you feel empty. You've hollowed yourself out to become whatever other people want you to be. But you can't save people from their own choices. You can't wake people up who are determined to stay asleep. And watching them choose conformity over authenticity, approval over integrity, comfort over growth, it's heartbreaking. So you step back. You stop trying to fix people who don't want to be fixed. You stop exhausting yourself trying to connect with people who can only relate to your mask, not your face. Society tells us loneliness is the worst thing that can happen to you. That being alone means you're broken, unlovable, and failing at life. They paint solitude as punishment, as something to be afraid of, as evidence that you're doing something wrong. What a joke. You know what's actually worse than loneliness? Being surrounded by people who don't see you, don't hear you, don't know you, and don't want to. Being in relationships where you have to pretend to be someone else to keep the peace, where your authentic thoughts and feelings are too much, too weird, or too intense for others to handle. Being around people who drain your energy with their constant need for validation, who doubt your reality when you share your experiences, and who diminish your spirit by treating you like a supporting character in their life story. That's the real isolation. That's the kind of loneliness that eats you alive from the inside. When you're alone by choice, protecting your energy and living authentically, that's not loneliness. That's self-respect. That's self-preservation. That's choosing your own well-being over other people's comfort. Here's what happens when you stop trying to collect people like trophies and start choosing connection carefully. You realize one authentic relationship is worth more than 100 shallow ones. One person who sees you, really sees you, is more valuable than an entire social circle that only knows your performance. You stop trying to be everything to everyone and start being yourself to the few people who can handle it. You stop exhausting yourself trying to meet everyone else's needs and start honoring your own. You quit the popularity contest and start playing the authenticity game. You stop measuring success by how many people want to be around you and start measuring it by how comfortable you are being yourself. And suddenly the relationships you do have, the rare, precious few, become deeper, richer, and more meaningful than anything you experienced in your people-pleasing days. You attract people who appreciate depth over surface, quality over quantity, and truth over comfort. People who are also tired of the performance, who also value authenticity, who also understand that real connection requires vulnerability and courage. But here's the thing, those people are rare, really rare. And while you're waiting for them, you learn to be comfortable in your own company. Solitude becomes your fortress, not your prison. In the quiet of your own space, you can think your own thoughts without someone trying to change your mind. You can feel your feelings without someone trying to fix them or compete with them. You can pursue your interests without someone judging them or hijacking them for their own agenda. You can work on becoming the person you want to be instead of the person others need you to be. You can heal from past wounds without someone picking at them. You can grow at your own pace without someone rushing you or holding you back. You start to understand that the relationship with yourself is the foundation for every other relationship in your life. And if that foundation is solid, if you know who you are, what you value, and what you will and won't accept, then you can be selective about who gets access to your inner world. Your solitude becomes a sacred space where you can recharge, reflect, and reconnect with your authentic self. One of the most liberating moments in this journey is when you develop the ability to say no without explanation, justification, or apology. Can you do me a favor? No. Want to hang out? No, thank you. Why are you being so antisocial? Because I choose to be. Don't you get lonely? No, I get peaceful. You stop over-explaining your boundaries. You stop feeling guilty for protecting your energy. You stop apologizing for having standards. You stop justifying your choices to people who wouldn't understand them anyway. And the people who can't handle your boundaries, they reveal themselves as people you don't want in your life anyway. Their reaction to your no tells you everything you need to know about their respect for your autonomy. Here's the truth nobody wants to hear. Most people are more comfortable with your struggle than your growth. They want you available for their problems, but not thriving beyond their level. They want you to stay small so they don't have to examine their own limitations. They want you stuck in the same patterns so they don't have to face the possibility of their own change. When you start isolating to focus on your growth, when you stop being available for everyone else's drama, and when you start living authentically, they take it personally. Your peace threatens their chaos. Your boundaries challenge their sense of entitlement to your time and energy. Your growth highlights their stagnation. Your authenticity exposes their performance. And instead of being inspired by your journey, instead of asking how they might create more peace in their own lives, they try to pull you back down. Think of isolation as a social detox. You're clearing out the toxins, the energy vampires, the fair weather friends, the conditional love, the performative relationships, the drama addicts, and the boundary pushers. It's uncomfortable at first. You might feel lonely. You might doubt yourself. You might wonder if you're making a mistake. The silence might feel loud. The space might feel empty. But then something beautiful happens. The fog clears. You remember who you are without other people's projections and expectations clouding your vision. You rediscover your interests, your values, and your dreams, the ones you buried to fit in with people who never really accepted you anyway. You remember what you actually enjoy, not what you performed enjoying to gain approval. You start to heal from the damage of trying to be everything to everyone while being nothing to yourself. The constant stress of performance starts to fade. The anxiety of trying to read and meet everyone else's needs begins to lift. When you choose isolation over inauthentic connection, you're not giving up on relationships. You're making space for the right ones. You're saying no to relationships that require you to betray yourself. You're refusing to participate in social games that leave everyone feeling empty. You're choosing depth over breadth, quality over quantity, and truth over comfort. And yes, it's a smaller life in some ways. Fewer friends, less social activity, more quiet nights at home, fewer parties, fewer group chats, fewer social obligations. But it's your life, authentic, intentional, and aligned with who you actually are instead of who others need you to be. It's a life where your energy goes toward things that matter to you, where your time is spent on people who appreciate you, and where your emotions are invested in relationships that nourish rather than drain you. Make no mistake, this awareness comes with a price. Once you see through the social matrix, you can't go back to blissful ignorance. You'll always know when someone is performing. You'll always spot the manipulation tactics. You'll always see the neediness behind the charm, the fear behind the aggression, and the emptiness behind the constant activity. It's like being the only sober person at a party. Everyone else is drunk on social validation, getting high off drama and performance, and you're just watching, seeing it all clearly while they stumble around in their illusions. Sometimes you'll miss the simplicity of not knowing better. There's a certain peace in naive trust, in believing people's masks, and in thinking shallow connections are deep. There's comfort in the crowd, even when the crowd is wrong. But you can't unknow what you know, and honestly, you wouldn't want to. Yes, it hurts sometimes, watching people you care about choose performance over authenticity, realizing how few people can handle the real you, accepting that most connections are transactions disguised as relationships. It hurts to see through the illusions that keep other people comfortable. It hurts to realize that the world is lonelier than you thought, that authentic connection is rarer than you hoped, that most people are too afraid to be real. But here's the flip side. You're free. Free from manipulation, free from energy-draining relationships, free from the exhausting performance of being someone you're not. Free to think your own thoughts, feel your own feelings, live your own values. Free to use your energy on things that actually matter instead of feeding other people's neediness. Free to wait for relationships that nourish your soul instead of settling for ones that drain it. Society measures success by how many people show up to your party. But what if success is actually about how comfortable you are not throwing the party at all? What if success is having the courage to be alone rather than the desperation to be accepted? What if success is protecting your energy instead of spending it on people who don't deserve it? What if success is knowing yourself so well that you can't be manipulated by others anymore? What if success is choosing authentic solitude over inauthentic connection? What if success is measured not by how many people want to be around you, but by how peaceful you feel in your own company? Here's the thing they don't tell you about isolating yourself after truly knowing people. It's not about hating humanity. It's about loving yourself enough to stop betraying who you are for relationships that were never real in the first place. You don't isolate because you're broken. You isolate because you're finally whole enough to recognize what true connection looks like and brave enough to wait for it. You stop trying to fix people who don't want to be fixed. You stop trying to wake people up who are comfortable sleeping. You stop trying to connect with people who can only relate to your mask. And in that space, that quiet, authentic, protected space, you discover something remarkable. You're not lonely. You're free. Free to be yourself without apology. Free to pursue your interests without judgment. Free to think your thoughts without interference. Free to feel your feelings without someone trying to change them. Free to choose who gets access to your energy, your time, and your heart. The tragedy of knowing people deeply is there's just so much more to know.